of using drugs. Her mother introduced her to drugs and prostitution at a very young age. She was what they called the pickaxe murderer. But as she got off drugs, once she got to death row and grew up, and she was there quite a number of years, she became very religious, very remorseful. She actually became friends with the brother of the man, the woman she murdered. And he is now, he witnessed her execution, but he is an opponent of the death penalty because, as he says, killing Karla Faye Tucker doesn't help me. I still miss my sister, but it's violence by the government. But Karla was a very beautiful woman, and a lot of the guys in death row, it was kind of funny. They were talking before her execution, and one friend of mine, Thomas Miller, said, "Oh my gosh, if they execute Karla Faye Tucker, this white woman who's so beautiful and angelic looking, she's obviously turned her life around, very remorseful. She married the prison minister. If they execute her, what are they going to do to an ugly black guy like me? I don't have a chance." But they did execute her. And at that execution, there was, oh my God, there must have been 100 media trucks, thousands of people. Some people were there celebrating the execution. Her husband's church was there with a stage set up, and they were playing religious music and speaking. It was quite a deal. But even, I guess it's the chauvinism in Texas, but even men would say, well, normally I support the death penalty, but not for that pretty woman. But since Karla Faye Tucker was executed, and there's been maybe a dozen women executed in the whole country, 2 more women in Texas were executed. One was an older white woman named Betty Lou Beets, who was a battered woman who killed her husband, and they found his body in the backyard. To me, that's self-defense, but she was executed. And then a woman in 2005, September 14th, 2005, Frances Newton was executed. She was an African-American woman from Houston who I would bet my life was innocent because she was accused of killing her husband and her 2 children. I can understand husbands and wives maybe killing each other in a moment of anger, but no sane woman kills their kids. You can threaten your kids and say, oh, if you don't clean up your room, I'm going to kill you. Or if you don't come in on time Saturday night, I'm going to kill you. But you don't mean it. And Frances Newton adored her 2 children, adored them. Her mother told me after the execution, she said, you know, I was going through Frances's stuff and I found her kids' report cards. They had perfect attendance in school. She said, what kind of mother dresses their kids impeccably, sends them to school every day, and then kills them? And I think about that when I think about Frances. I think about her kids having that perfect attendance. So those are the 3 women that have been executed in Texas. There's 10 on death row in Texas. There's actually a campaign building up for one of them named Linda Carty, and she's from one of the Caribbean islands. She's a black woman. She has British citizenship. And ironically, the campaign for her has initiated across the sea in England. And now people here are getting involved in her case. Linda Carty, before Frances Newton was executed, Frances told her boyfriend, if I'm executed, I want you to help Linda Carty. She said, I know she's innocent. I don't know a whole lot about that case, but that's her execution could come sometime this year. There's another woman on death row in Texas that I believe in my heart is innocent because she was accused of killing her kids. She was in a suburb of Dallas, or near Dallas, and her name is Darlie Routier. Darlie says that she was sleeping in the downstairs with her kids one night, and somebody broke in, killed her boys, and almost killed her. And if you look on the internet and see the pictures of her, I don't know much about anatomy, but she was stabbed in the neck a fraction of an inch from I guess some artery that if you hit, you die. And the police say she did that to herself, and I can't imagine anybody doing that to them. She was battered and bruised and stabbed, something awful. So that's another case of a woman. But in general, obviously women are a very small percentage of people on death row. We've had some really great advances in the last decade, I guess, as far as legal rulings on the death penalty. In 2002, the Supreme Court ruled that you could not execute somebody who was mentally retarded. The only problem with that ruling was they didn't describe what mental retardation was. And in Texas, the legislature, nobody has defined it. So mentally retarded people are actually still being executed. But we did have that legal victory. And then the natural outcome of that would be if somebody has such a low IQ that they have the reasoning ability of a child, therefore they shouldn't be executed, then people who haven't reached the legal age of 18 should not be executed. So it was 3 years later, in 2005, that the Supreme Court did kind of make that continuation, and they outlawed the execution of juveniles, people who were 15, 16, 17 years old when they were convicted of a crime. And after that ruling, everybody that was on death row, and I don't remember how many, I want to say maybe 60 people around the country, I know it was 28 in Texas, who had been juveniles, they were taken off death row and given a life sentence. Now, the next issue that we're looking at that we think we can get a good legal ruling on is the question of people who don't have low reasoning ability but that have mental illnesses. And there's a lot of people with mental illness on death row. A lot of people who grow up in extreme poverty with extreme brutality or violence in their life that makes you have mental issues, anybody. And so we've been working with the legislature, and that's another issue that we want to work on through the legislature and through building awareness among the public, is the question of mental illnesses. Nobody who is so whacked out that they don't understand what they're doing should be executed. For example, Scott Panetti, who's on death row, and why the judge allowed this, I'll never know, but the judge allowed him to defend himself. He wore a purple cowboy suit. He subpoenaed Jesus Christ, John Wayne, I don't remember. It was almost comical, except that he wound up being sent to death row. He was obviously mentally ill. I remember another guy that was mentally ill. I don't recall his name. A reporter was here from another country, and he says, "Gloria, can you help me? I've got this video of this guy, and I keep playing it, and I can't make sense of it." He said, "I guess my English isn't good enough." Well, I listened to the 30-minute video. I couldn't explain what he was saying either. He was talking about being in real life, I'm the prison warden, and I run this place, and then he'd go to different... It didn't make any sense. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't know what was wrong with him, but he was obviously not in a normal state of mind. So there's a lot of this, and we're hoping that can be dealt with. One more issue is the issue of people who were not born in the United States, foreign nationals who get sent to death row. The World Court in The Hague ruled, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, that unless, like if you're from Mexico, you're arrested in Texas for murder, if you don't notify the Mexican consulate, you don't have the right to execute them. And most states, not just Texas, have failed to do that in many cases. In fact, that's one of the issues with Linda Carty, this woman who's a British citizen. The British government is contending